Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Teresa. I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Good morning. I've been through the process as it's laid out in the big book with a loving and gentle big book step study sponsor, a God of my understanding that I learned here, meetings like this with people like you guys and gals, and I'm making amends, and I'm practicing the latter step to the best of my willingness. So, it's way big difference than be sitting over there than sitting up here. It's like, if my knees stop shaking, I'm sure I'm gonna be okay. But I'm just gonna let God, it's amazing. I'm just gonna let God's words, my voice, and we'll see what happens. So I'd like to just share in a general way, what it was like for me. I'm from Western Mass, which that doesn't make, anyways, I'm from Western Mass, and I came, which doesn't make any difference, I was gonna say, but anyway, that's where I'm from, and I came here to get sober. So I grew up, I'm the oldest of 7, and I grew up in the projects, and nobody had a father, and everybody was on welfare. That just was how I grew up. But my mother had a boyfriend, and he used to drink a lot. So he was an alcoholic, but who am I to call him one? So I was a kid that lived in a lot of fear, but I thought I was afraid, but I didn't know how fear just was everywhere. And my solution to fear was to go and hide, isolate. And for me, I feel like my first experience with mood or mind altering is really fantasy. Fantasy was my first thing, I believe. Fantasy was my first substance. I use fantasy a real lot. If things, and from a young age, I thought, really, prior to picking up a drink or a drug, I thought, if I had some other home and mother, family, all those outside circumstances, that I was going to be okay. So right from the get-go, long before I picked up, I had this restless, irritable, and discontent feeling. I was not happy, and I didn't really know why. And I thought somehow it's their fault, If only I had a better home, probably more money, all the things that I thought was going to make me happy. So, long story short, I picked up booze and drugs because, and I, even though this is Alcoholics Anonymous, we're very understanding, even though we want to keep the problem right to booze, drugs is involved in my story too. So I picked up, and it did for me what I wanted to do, which I didn't care about anything. So, that's just how it was. I didn't care about anything, and I certainly could care less about you. All I cared about is myself. So what happened to me, I was introduced to AA in 1987 through Doctor's Hospital. When I stayed there 21 days, I thought I was cured. It's really funny. I was cured. This is crazy, but that's where I was at. And, through lots of stories and ups and downs and all arounds, I ended up in places I didn't want to be, doing things I didn't want to be doing. And in 2010, I was blessed with the ability to, hear a voice that said, you could go to detox. So I did, and thus started my journey. I came out here, and I went to a halfway house, and I met my sponsor, and she was doing the process at that point. And so she said, well, I'm going to these meetings, would you like to come? And I said, yes, of course. And I started to go to, not this meeting in particular, that happened after, but Whitmarsh and Leeds, Wednesday night when Big Book was there. So that's a lot of words to say. This is where I began. And I really liked what everyone said, because I really liked the honesty, and I really liked that I couldn't talk to. I didn't want to talk. I had a whole bunch to say, but I'm sure that wasn't really, would be good here. So, I started coming to meetings and, and I was so fearful. I mean, even fear now, fear is a big part of my life, but then I can remember not even looking at people, sitting like this, not even looking next to me, craziness, but that's just how it was for me. So, I started, I asked my sponsor to be my Big Book Step Study sponsor, and so we did, I started to read the first 63 and a half pages, underline what was stuck out to me, and circle words that I didn't know, and in that time I was to start a relationship with God. And first, I like to say that this is the only place that I heard I had a allergy of the body with the obsession of the mind. I never heard it any other place. I really didn't, and possibly I couldn't be listening, and that probably was true too. So, I learned that, and I learned it through the book, and, I started to understand. That made a lot of sense to me, and I was like, okay, and to be honest about my booze and drug problem. And then, for me to finding a power greater than myself, I had a lot of prejudice. I was pissed off and not believe at the same time about God. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. Just totally confused and really basically blocked off. But, once again, I was guided, and, I thought, and I came to believe in a power greater than myself. So now that we're on step 3, so when we started to read the how it works, prior to this, and certainly while being in the process, I was like, I'm one of those constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself. That's a cop-out, but I like it. It works for me. I don't know how to be honest. I'm just, habitual liar. I just, and I thought I was an honest person. That's a lie, If it worked for me, I'd be honest. If it didn't, I'd tell a lie. Let's face it. So, once again, I thought I was that constitutionally incapable of being honest, and I thought, my chances really I couldn't get it. Anyways, whatever it is, I couldn't understand concepts, but the truth is, I can understand concepts. So when it comes to making a decision to turn my will and my life over the care of God as I understand Him, just what does that mean? Just what does that mean to me? And so that's my thoughts and actions. And that sounds real simple. Oops, but it's really not. It's not that simple. So I should say, so when we did the 3rd step prayer with my sponsor, she lit a candle. We did it in her office, and she said, do we want to kneel and hold hands? And me, still the defiant one, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Too close. And she just let me be. And, it's just, she was so loving and caring to me. And she just let me be. And, so I took that step, and I made a contract kind of that when I was done with the process, I'd be willing to take somebody else through. I don't remember saying that. I'm like, are you sure I said that? She said, yes, you did say that. So, okay. And at that point, so this is what for me, at this point I was willing to try anything, because everything for me that I tried, tried doing it this and not this, then and not this, all my things of trying to control everything, it just didn't work. I was just, and I tried it all, as it talks in the chapters before. I tried everything, some way, different combinations that it's going to work and it's going to be better for me. And it just didn't work for me. So at this point, I'm willing to I've tried everything else. Why don't I try this? Really, that's what it was for me. you know, when we were reading, my sponsor touched on a few things. I'm definitely not as good as she is by pointing things out. But she told me that step 3 is an action step, that, you know, the first 2, identify the disease, and 3, we're going to start doing action, which is, you know, the prayer really, because I'm visual, I just can say, here God, you know, here I am. And it makes me feel okay, and that's really all if I wanted to feel like. I want to feel okay. And I can look at myself in the mirror today, and I can be all right with me, and I don't, you know, hate myself. This is a miracle for me. I don't hate myself. So this, we're trying to build an art, which we shall walk a free man. It says something like that. I'm probably misquoting, yes. Oh, something like that, right? The keystone. So the keystone to this arch is going to be the top, the crown stone, to hold all the other pieces together. So that makes sense for me too. This is the key element. It's gonna, you know, we're gonna walk a free man through this arch, and so that makes sense to me once again. And that you know, I was willing. And then the only thing for me is that I was willing. At this point, I don't even know what I was thinking, probably bunch of pretty nothings, but, you know, right when I'm doing this, in this particular stage of the game, it's just I'm taking advice, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's later on that I come to build a relationship with this God of my understanding. So, let's see. I should say when I took this step, because it says, you know, I took this step with my sponsor. I mean, I wouldn't think of anyone else to do that with, just like my 5th step. But I really didn't feel anything. It says sometimes we feel. I just was willing to go along and follow her directions. That was really it. And as it comes to, you know, get further on in developing a relationship, I realized that, you know, that really I have the gift of being born again, that we were reborn. I really like that, because that old life is gone. It's done. You know, I can look back on it to share my experience, but as far as living in it, I'm not that same person, and I'm a different woman today. And so that's pretty much all I have, and thank you for letting me share.